The second lot are the virtues, the goodness, our saving grace, love, compassion, wisdom, kindness. I mean, we know these words intimately, and we know when we hear the first lot, whatever our analysis is, we know that they're not nice. We know we don't like them, and we know that if on the receiving end of them, they're horrible. We just know this, And then the virtuous ones, the positive one, you're on the receiving end of those. This is wonderful, not to mention having them in yourself. So what about the third lot? This is curious. They often refer to these categories of states of mind as negative, positive, and neutral. So it doesn't tell us much. But the first and second, we can say non-virtuous and virtuous, and that's a bit nerve-wracking because we don't think that way in modern psychology at all. It sounds a bit judgmental, but it's crucial to understand this from the Buddha's point of view. Because the first lot makes us miserable and causes us to harm others, and the second lot makes us happy and causes us to help others, basically. So this third lot, I prefer to call them the mechanics of the mind, in the sense that without these, we can't function. They're really like the mechanical parts of our mind. I mean, we're talking about the non-physical thing called the consciousness, not talking about the brain. But these words like intention, not motivation, volition, I will, pay attention, concentration, good memory, discrimination. There's many of these. So in other words, these are the ones that, whether you're a murderer or a meditator, you need these to do your job well. So it's in that sense that they say that they're neither neurotic and deluded, nor are they virtuous, but they're crucial. They're absolutely vital. So it's a very specific way of putting it, So oddly enough, very oddly initially, in that category, there's one called feeling. This plays a huge role in Buddha's analysis of the world. If you look at the 5 aggregates, he points this out as one of the crucial components of a person. If you look at the 12 links, you're going to see number 7 or something is called feeling. This is really incredibly important to understand, especially when it comes to happiness and suffering. Because he says there's only 3 kinds of this feeling, and this is not the way we use it, not an equivalent of an emotion, not like that at all. It's basically, he says, every millisecond, some of these states of mind are there all the time, and this is one of them. So every millisecond, the Buddhist approach is saying we either have a happy feeling, or pleasant, or very pleasant, or divinely pleasant, or ecstatic, or rapturous, or whatever word you like, on the spectrum of from the mildest pleasure to the most profound, intense pleasure. We understand that. Then you've got the unpleasant feeling, very unpleasant, horrible feeling, nightmarish, like the worst torture possible. So these states, so it's very hard to distinguish all these. If every millisecond you're having a feeling, either pleasant or unpleasant, and forget the neutral, if every millisecond you've got intention, attention, concentration, there's many parts of our mind all working together to enable us to have our experiences, So the ones we need to utilize all these states of mind in order. The crucial job is to distinguish between the neurotic ones and the virtuous ones. Why? Because we want to get rid of the non-virtuous ones and grow the virtuous ones. That's the job of being a Buddhist. I mean, it's not how we would tend to think, that this is the job of being a Buddhist. The goal, Buddha, Sangye in Tibetan, is to be free of all the neuroses and full to perfection of the goodness. And the bits and pieces of our mind that enable us to do that are all these mechanical bits, if you like. They don't call them that, but I find that very, very helpful. So this feeling, it kind of sounds odd. It's not in the sense a negative or a positive. It's not virtuous or non-virtuous. I mean, but we equate it. I think when we hear Buddhist teachings, when we hear about attachment, and then we hear about lovely relationships, when we're in love with somebody, or we love our chocolate cake. When we hear give up attachment, as Lama Zopa says, we tend to throw the baby out the bathwater, and we go, oh, I've got to give up my happiness. I've got to give up my heart. Because we just assume without analysis, because most of us don't study Buddhist psychology properly, we just assume happiness comes along with attachment. Because on the very simple level, in relation to sense objects, we know contact with the sense object is our method for triggering some happy feelings. We know that. Equally, contact with sense objects also triggers intensely unhappy feelings. If you get punched in the nose, it triggers an unhappy feeling. If you're kissed by your beloved, it triggers a pleasant feeling. So we assume they come along somehow with attachment and anger, but they're completely different states of mind. But it's so technical to say this because we can't possibly tell the difference. I mean, when you decide you want that chocolate cake and you're attached to chocolate cake, okay, so attachment is the key neurotic one. as far as Buddha is concerned, and the Four Noble Truths, it's effectively the main cause of our suffering. And we need to learn to understand that that's the case, but because it's not our analysis. But its key function is this emotional hunger coming from an assumption of not being enough. This is the energy of attachment. So we are hungry emotionally for things, objects of the senses, for approval, for someone to like us, give us things, get things, all kinds of these things. Or if you like, bare bone. The real thing we're attached to, craving for, is pleasant feeling. I mean, the only reason you get the cake is to get the pleasant feeling. If you had a tongue that didn't work, wouldn't bother eating this boring stuff. You know, if you had no nervous system, why would you care if someone kissed you or touched you? Because so in a sense, the job of attachment at the grossest level is to find the sensory objects such that contact with them triggers a pleasant feeling. So the big point is that Buddha's making is that we all assume, and this is why we get depressed in life, we all assume that contact with pleasant feelings is the way to get happy feeling. Sorry, contact with attachment objects. That's our only method. We just sit here waiting for pleasure to come. We know it won't. We'll go mad, in fact, if we don't have a sensory contact with something. Because our grossest level of our being, of course, is sensory. So basically, the only method we know, this is the dogs and monkeys as well. Generally speaking, the first level of trying to get happiness is to try to have to organize our life such that we have pleasant experiences, which means we have to have the nice things, nice sounds, nice smells, nice touch, nice taste, good food, lovely environment, peaceful sound. This is how we spend our lives, isn't it? Pursuing the getting, if we can, of those things because we want the pleasant feelings. I mean, it's almost too simple, Well, okay, of course, Buddha's point is that he says we're making a mistake. He's not being moralistic. He just says, I'm sorry, guys, if you analyze carefully, and this is really scientifically true, but we don't have to think of it. The contact with the cake is true. He says, yes, contact with that object does trigger pleasant feeling. We know that. But then, of course, because this is the catch-22 of attachment. Attachment primordial is emotional hunger. It's an assumption that I don't have enough and I can't get enough, and what I get is never enough. So what happens is, this is in the beginning, there's this excitement and anticipation of that delicious cake. And the anticipation is like energy, can't wait to get it. We know that, but because the assumption is when I get it, I'll get satisfied. It's a polite word for pleasure. I'll feel content. The cake will do it. The boyfriend will do it. The job will do it. The sound will do it. And we're constant attachment causing us to constantly pursue these different things because we're wanting satisfaction. We want to be fulfilled. We want to feel joy, and we want to laugh. Nothing wrong with this. But our mistake is that we think it comes from the cake, from the boyfriend, from the objects of the senses. He's not saying don't have them. He just says be more realistic about them. So what I'm getting at here is attachment is this over-exaggerating, distorted, embellishing, neurotic, delusional state of mind. And because it is that, then it won't get what it thinks it will get. And so terrible disappointment always comes. But the assumption first is when I get that cake, and it's true, the first moment of that cake definitely triggers another state of mind called pleasant feeling. Now, nothing wrong with pleasure. Lama Yeshe used to joke to all us hippie, neurotic, self-pity Westerners, the more pleasure, the better, dear. It sounds like a sin, really, if you say it like that. Pleasure sounds, too naughty. So we misunderstand religious teachings as getting rid of pleasure. Well, Buddha makes a complete distinction. He says our mind actually has this potential. The degree to you give up this emotional craving, the degree to which you give up anger and all the neurotic states of mind, is the degree, one, that you will develop the virtuous states of mind, and two, that you will develop pleasant feelings or happiness. But again, our trouble with this is when we say the word pleasant feelings, we know it refers here. We get it, a pleasant feeling. But when we say happiness, because we're so addicted to believing the cake or the boyfriend are the cause of it, we even tend to think that the boyfriend and the cake are the happiness. So when you have a wonderful experience with your boyfriend, you go home and you remember that memory, you remember that experience as the happiness. Tell me about your happiness, Robina. I won't describe the happy feelings. I won't describe the degree of my pleasant feelings. I will describe the boyfriend. I will describe the event, like the photos in my mind of that dinner and the boyfriend and the words he said to me. So we even think that the external event is the happiness. That's what we think. And if you think of the suffering, it's exactly the same. Completely mistaken. They're external events. So they play a role, but the right way to put it from the Buddhist perspective is they're like catalysts, whereas we think they're the main event. So attachment misleads us. It's emotional hunger, the habit of it from Buddha, countless lives, Buddha says. But always hungry, always wanting more, never satisfied. So then we're convinced the cake will do it, the job will do it, whatever it might be. And then we conflate the happiness with the object, or we conflate it with attachment. So we're just confused, So we really have to do this analysis. This is exactly the Buddhist approach. So his Buddha's goal, the point that really Buddha's making, speaking very simply, is that his path is a method, he says it, of getting rid of suffering. Flip that over, it's a method of getting happy. And crucially, getting happy feelings, being able to cultivate happy feelings that last. It's as simple as that. And this is the tragedy of the way we get happy feelings now. They don't last. I mean, you go for that cake. All the anticipation is so intense, isn't it? And it's just cake. And building up, anticipating. The excitement is anticipation. You get the cake in the mouth. So what's happening is this. One, a pleasant feeling is triggered right there. No doubt. But you know what? This is the tragedy. Right next to you, there's several parts of the mind, or parts of our mind, all doing their job. The attachment there, which has been anticipating, now gets the cake. And it's believing that, the attachment as if it were personified. They've got attachment thinking its own trip, pleasant feeling its own trip, all the different states of mind doing their job. So attachment is believing that when I get when the cake comes, satisfaction will come, pleasure, but the terrible trouble is the attachment. The second it gets the first mouthful and the first pleasure, it immediately is saying, Robina, it's not enough. I'm still dissatisfied. So then you've got to put another piece of cake in, and it's downhill from there. And this is the suffering of samsara. It's quite technical, but we can recognize it. But because it's the only method we have for getting happiness, we can't bear to look at it. Too painful. Are we communicating? It's really obvious. This is scientific truth. It's not religion. But it's very depressing because we think, well, what am I supposed to do? Where the hell is pleasure then? If it's not from the cakes and the boyfriends and getting happy and people liking me and praising me and loving me and money in the bank and happy feelings in my body, what is it? Then it seems like religion. Depressing, But interesting, really. So the point I'm getting here is happiness isn't delusion, isn't attachment, isn't a negative so-called state of mind. The Buddha is actually saying that, again, I'll say it, the degree to which we lessen the neuroses in the mind, and this is his entire methodology, of how to identify, recognize, and work with and lessen attachment, anger, jealousy, pride, and the neuroses that are the source of our pain, the source of our unpleasant feelings. That's his methodology. It's not hit and miss. It's clear, logical, progressive practice, And that the degree to which we can improve, we can grow on that path is the degree to which, like I say it again, one, your virtuous states of mind enhanced, more love, less attachment, less anger, less jealousy, less depression, more love, more kindness, more patience, more happiness, more happy feeling, more pleasant feeling. That's it. It's technical. But of course, the way I'm saying it is in a modern, practical way, not the way they talk about it like in India and Tibet, You've got to kind of unpack it in your head. Are we communicating here? So we all want happiness, no one wants something. That's Buddha's deal. Almost the entire path is based on this evident thing that he's observed. Every living being only ever wants happiness, and every living being only ever doesn't want something. And the tragedy is that the Buddha is saying that we've got the wrong methods. We're leading ourselves up garden paths. The very thing that actually causes us suffering is what we think causes us happiness. He says this is the tragedy. And the reason to have compassion for ourselves, and then when we realize it, to have such compassion for sentient beings, And of course, the problem is attachment, but it's so primordial. It's so utter in our mind. It's hard. And all of our psychology like assumes the existence of a thing called attachment. We hardly even name it. It's so completely pervasive. It's extremely hard to identify. But this is his method. This is Buddha's method. So happiness is the goal. Happy feelings is the goal. But it's dangerous because we're such junkies. Then when we get a little bit of pleasure and we are convinced the cake or the boyfriend are the main cause, we are convinced, and we can be forgiven for thinking that because it seems like it. Then of course we keep tipping it down the toilet because we're thinking now I've got the cake and the cake's going to have to make me happy. You have more cake and before you know it, you want to vomit. Where'd the happiness go? So we forget all about that tomorrow. The very cake that we think is going to bring pleasant feeling ends up making you vomit. This is we know it, but can't bear to think about it. So we don't know where to turn, And then we think we just got to have less cake. And it's kind of boring. And initially it's true. You've got to just control yourself. Discipline. We know that. But that's the starting point. But then we have to start into our mind and understanding this attachment and working away on our head, working on our mind, lessening the neuroses, growing the happiness. And this is where it sort of seems so boring, that happiness comes from virtue. I mean, it sounds so boring. Kind of like boring happiness, But of course, the thing is, in the big picture point of view, we've got to factor in the Buddhist view is long term. We're not just talking minute by minute because it's not. We can very easily see that by being patient right now, which is a virtue, if Buddha says virtue causes happiness, and that I'm being patient right now and I'm going crazy from this practice, there's no happiness there. So we think, what is he talking about? That's so we have to factor in the long term. There's a long-term methodology because, of course, as we know, Buddha talked about the mind coming from the past and the mind continuing into the future. There's a long-term methodology. Then the logic makes sense, But our job is to learn to become familiar with our mind, so we can see what's there. And this is extremely difficult because 1,000 thoughts a second, and they're all jumbled together like a big soup. And even though technically attachment was in the category called neurotic, and pleasure or pleasant feeling is in the category I call mechanics, we virtually can't tell the difference. They seem to come at the same. They seem to be completely synonymous. We can't tell the difference. So to really know our minds is extremely subtle. But we've got to start somewhere, So then if you think that attachment, if you think that the pleasure that we're trying to develop, which is, okay, one other point is this one. This helps us with the long-term view about it. The pleasure, there's two things. We've got sensory consciousness, pretty evident, which is immediate. The responses are immediate, pleasant or unpleasant. And then we have mental consciousness, which is all our thoughts and feelings and emotions, where the workshop is, as Lama Zopa said. So the Buddhist point when he said we can lessen suffering feelings and grow pleasant feelings, grow happiness, in other words. So what's he talking about? Is he talking about growing sensory pleasant feelings, or is he talking about the mental ones? Well, the point is the mental ones, because it's really evident, again, we have to analyze it to see the truth of it, that sensory feelings, pleasant feelings, can't grow. If they could, because we know that we need to, you see, we can't just sit here. With the senses, you've got to have an object, isn't it? Something. Object of sound, one of the five senses. You've got to have one of those to trigger a pleasant feeling in the body, in the consciousness conjoined with the body. So we know this is true, but it's depressing, but it's true that if you get the cake, the attachment totally, desperately, frantically believes that happiness will come and will stay or increase, which is why you have the second piece of cake. But we know, okay, Buddha's saying if cake, boyfriend, objects of the senses are the main cause of pleasant feelings, then it's logical that the more cake you eat, the more the pleasure will grow. And we know it's not true. It's in fact the exact opposite. And that's why Buddha calls getting pleasure from the senses, he calls it a level of suffering, the suffering of change. But even, see, then they've got mental consciousness, and you have mental happiness. And that's harder, but that's our goal. But in the sense, the first level of that is contentment, feeling content. Like I said before, that's really boring for us. We want exciting attachment. We want exciting happiness, But we know contentment, fulfillment, contentment. This is another word for pleasant feelings, but in the mental context. So therefore, you can't be content from getting sensory objects. It doesn't bring contentment. It brings the opposite. And we know this is true, but we have to be conscious of it and recognize it and not just follow and shove the cake in and cross your fingers and hope that contentment comes, because we know it won't. Dissatisfaction will come. And the irony is, the worst part is not only will you not get satisfaction, but you'll get dissatisfaction. But even worse than that, you'll increase the craving. As my mother used to say, I'd think and think about it, because I was attached to my food as a kid, right? She'd say, Bobsy, the more you get, the more you want. This is totally profound. It's the mind of it. It's a junkie, isn't it? I mean, basically, attachment is a level of being a junkie. It's a question of degree, that's all, and a question of the object. So then, what's this pleasure what is this happiness we're trying to gain? It's fulfillment, mental. And the irony is and also this is the irony is when you get less attachment, less emotional hunger, less kind of little poor, greedy, little bottomless pit, little unhappy little girl, less emotional hunger, either for the cake, which is sensory, or the praise and the approval, which is our deepest attachment, which is not sensory, that's mental. When we get less attachment for those, that is what contentment is. In other words, because attachment, you become content in yourself. The more there is in here, the attachment, it's always thinking about the outside, always thinking about the cake, the person, the praise, the money, the thing, the power, the approval. It's obsessively always thinking about the outside, frantically. Contentment is meaning you are literally feeling fulfilled, which means the opposite of attachment. That's the consequence of giving up attachment, becoming fulfilled. But often when we say fulfilled, it sounds kind of like complacent. No. So how do we grow that? One, by stopping. First level of practice in Buddhism is you're not even about your mind. Control the servants of your mind, which is your body and speech. In other words, have discipline. Live in vows, don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, don't jump on too many wrong partners, don't jump on any, in fact. The main ones are don't harm sentient beings. So then at least you refrain from those. But then the implication is don't have 7 pieces of cake. He's not saying that. He's not saying don't have. It's not like because it doesn't harm others, it just harms you. They all harm you. So you get the idea, though. Once you kind of begin to control your body and speech, there's some discipline, live in vows, calm your body and speech down, you then about not harming others at the very least, and then you start getting the message, okay, less cake, more control, more discipline. That is a method for getting happy. And we know it. We've given up one of our addictions. We know that in the beginning it's painful, but in the end you're content. We know that. It's true. Because the senses can't bring satisfaction. It's true, we know it. But it's hard work. Giving up addiction to food, giving up addiction to sex, giving up addiction to video games, giving up addiction to everything. I mean, we're just junkies. And the more sensory objects we have, and we've got plenty of them in the modern world, and we keep creating more, it's really hard. This is the method. Basic method is this one. And then automatically it gives more space in your mind to be more loving and kind. Then, of course, you proactively grow those which is even more methodology for becoming happy. And we know this. We know, they say that we know that helping others and doing jobs that are useful to other people, we know that brings satisfaction. Not sensory, mental. Mental. It's very fulfilling, I remember hearing first all these teachings and the levels of compassion they talk about. I thought they're over their head, over their top. It's ridiculous. It just seems too crazy, these levels of bodhicitta, these amazing bodhisattvas, And they seem too much. And I remember Dalai Lama saying, if you want to help others, practice love and compassion. If you want to help yourself, practice love and compassion. It's the most direct method for counteracting attachment and self-centeredness and counteracting dissatisfaction. But it also can be very tricky for us because actually love and compassion are more advanced. And often, what attracts us in our culture to a spiritual path is very often the talk of love and compassion. We love it, But unless we do the earlier work first, we're going to make a mistake. In other words, until we start looking into our own mind, controlling our body and speech, especially learning to understand attachment and controlling this particular attachment. Attachment to the sensory object is pretty evident, It's the obvious first level. But also there's enormous attachment at a more subtle level to comfort, to our comfort zone, our mental and physical comfort zone. So this, of course, become very lazy. But the other one is we get very strongly attached. And this is the hardest one to see. Attached to being seen as a good girl. Attached to being approved of, to be validated, to be praised. This is tremendously, primordially deep, and it's even more than attachment for sex and drugs and rock and roll. Really so, especially the attachment to being seen and heard and approved of. This is the deepest attachment of all. This is the closest to ego grasping and doesn't really go until we realize emptiness, But we've got to see this one. Because you can have plenty of sensory objects, we know that. And have plenty of jobs and be seen as beautiful, but still dissatisfied because attachment, no matter what it's for, it's a bottomless pit, So when the attachment is very strongly for being seen as a good girl, it doesn't get satisfaction when we're seen as a good girl. It just causes us to pray for more. Because even that attachment can't be satisfied. Sensory attachment can't be satisfied, but nor can this mental consciousness, nor can the craving to be seen and heard. Or comfort, understand? So it's very tricky, this attachment. So if you're rushing around helping other people, which is amazing, but you haven't worked on your own mind, it can be polluted by this attachment to being seen as a good girl. And very, very tricky one. A strong sense of identity with being a good person, And then if someone doesn't like you, we're devastated. We're not approved of. And that's why we get burned out. Because we haven't worked on our attachment. It's a very hard one. And this is why I say very commonly in our culture, we tend to say that we find it easier to have attachment, compassion for other people, but not for ourselves. And that's because we haven't done the first stages of practice. Because giving up attachment, having attachment, causes us to hate ourselves. The energy of being caught up in attachment and anger and depression and jealousy is that we are, we don't like ourselves. The symptom of having attachment is that we're dissatisfied, therefore I'm nothing. We criticize ourselves. Not only do we think we don't have enough, we actually think I am not enough. This is the main pain of attachment. So no matter how much you try to help others, you won't get much satisfaction from it because satisfaction, it's limited by your attachment. It's a very tricky one. Are we communicating here? This demands a lot of inner awareness, a lot of clarity. These states of mind are so tricky. Are there any questions about what I've said so far?
Why is it that attachment triggers self-loathing? I don't see the connection.
It triggers so much what?
Why does attachment trigger the self-loathing?
Okay, because attachment comes from a feeling, keep the mic, a feeling that I'm not enough. Here myself, I'm not enough. Already it is coming, I'm not enough. That's why I'm always hungry for something else. If you're feeling full, you're always hungry, right? Well, attachment is emotional hunger.
Attachment is emotional hunger.
It's coming from a place, I'm not enough. The more we feel separate, the more we feel separate from others, the more we feel lonely and bereft and I'm not enough. That's why we hunger for people and hunger for things and hunger for approval. Getting things is the symptom of a nothing person. So when you lessen attachment, you become more fulfilled in who you are. Isn't it?
Okay, thank you.
So the question, keep there. The question then should be, well, why have we got dissatisfaction? Because we practice attachment. It's a bottomless pit. It's like a vicious circle. The Buddhist has come into this life from having practiced this, having emotional hunger, then believing the cake will fix it, and then once the cake doesn't fix it, what do you think is going to happen? Even more dissatisfaction. Oh, it didn't work. You're disappointed. So getting attachment objects, attachment believes it'll bring satisfaction. You're disappointed, so the disappointment builds up, and that's what low self-esteem is. Disappointment. I'm nothing and nobody. It's kind of schizophrenic. Sorry to say it, but it's like
Right. Yes.
and it just goes on and on.
So if a person is already schizophrenic, that's just going to make it so much worse.
Well, that's all of us. I mean, Lovey, yes, you would say that word sometimes we find it a bit shocking, but the sense of separate from everything, lonely, bereft, me here, poor me here, and all the delicious world out there, or all the ugly world out there, you know? I want to punch it or grab it.
Thank you.
It's a tricky one, you know? What else, people? What else? Online, perhaps? Yeah. Nobody else. Okay. Let's leave it there, darling. Thanks. Go through that. Oh. So, how to cultivate? So the thing is, too, you've got to this is the other one. We've got to cultivate happy feelings. You can't just wait for them to come. You can't do that. It's silly, you know. So that means is one of the ways we have to practice having happy thoughts, positive thoughts. Here we are attached, neurotic, ridiculous, and we're going to we're in the mental gym, okay? And when you're in the real gym, you get all excited. You can see how the results will come. You see the photos of what you're going to look like. And you go to the gym on the first day and you make a tremendous effort. And you come home and you look in the mirror and you see no change. And not only is there no change, but you feel terrible. So you can easily, based on no bad feelings, give it up. But you know you're on the right method. You know if you keep practicing, it will eventually come. So you've got to perk yourself up. That's when positive thoughts come in. I'm doing a good job. It's okay. I'm on the right track. Gradually, persevere, Robina. Those positive thoughts can then trigger, oh, wow, I'm doing okay. That's a happy feeling. So we have to cultivate happy feelings. Are you communicating with me? They're not just, we just think an object will do it. It's very passive. Shove it in the mouth and a happy feeling comes, you know? We've got to cultivate happy feelings. That's why so many, this is where also in our culture we think the mind doesn't matter. I know that sounds peculiar, but I'll never forget, Lama's ever said one time, I'll kind of paraphrase. I'll say some more first. We know the mind plays a tremendous role in when you have to learn to make a cake, play the piano, walk down the street. You've got to have really clear thoughts. You've got to know exactly what you're doing. And you have to have your thoughts make a lot of difference. You've got to have clear thoughts about the recipe, and then you'll make the cake properly. So you know your mind plays a tremendously powerful role. But when it comes to happiness and suffering, as Lama Zopa says, and he said these words exactly, it's shocking. The vast majority of the people on this planet have absolutely no idea that what goes on in their mind when it comes to happiness and suffering. That what goes on in their mind plays no role at all. Because it's all the external world. This is true. Look at the world. If that's not schizophrenic, I don't know what is. We don't even know not only do we not know that what goes on in our mind plays a role, we don't even know what goes in our mind, period. until it vomits out the mouth and you want to kill yourself or kill your husband. And then we say, oh, I can think what I like. What that means is it's like saying I can put any seeds in my garden that I like, which of course is true, but it implies seeds don't bring results. So we don't, this will be your karma. They say the bodhisattvas have the greatest compassion for ordinary sentient beings because we don't realize the law of cause and effect. And all that means is that we don't realize that we, our thoughts and our actions, that is the process that produces the person I become. That's the meaning of karma. You know it when it comes to being a musician. You take full responsibility. You train your mind like you can't imagine. You study and study your mind, training your mind in those complicated theories. That's the mind. You know your thoughts count. Then you'll be a musician. But when it comes to happiness, we don't think it's got anything to do with our mind. The more we think about it, the more mind-boggling it is. You know? Are we communicating here? Thought says, be conscious. Your mind, your thoughts are the cause of happiness. Your actions control your body and speech. Don't follow attachment. Don't follow anger. Tremendously hard, like going to the gym. Enormously hard work. Of course it is. But when you understand the logic of it, you will persevere. Happiness will come. We're junkies. We want it now. We're frantic. This is true. It's not being moralistic. It's just true. We've got to really analyze, you know. It takes time. But rejoicing, this is where, the Lamas always said we should rejoice. This sounds hilarious to us. What do you mean rejoice? First, we don't know anything to rejoice about. I'm creepy, I'm no good, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I can't do this, can't do that, no one loves me, I'm hopeless, the weather's horrible, the food's awful. What do you mean rejoice, you know? It means to have happy thoughts. No, not happy, positive thoughts, virtuous thoughts. Right now we can see we don't need to invite crazy thoughts. I always joke, but it's true, I have never yet met a person who says, Robina, I can't stop thinking positive thoughts. It seems to be that the negative ones, the unhappy ones, the limited ones, the depressing ones, the negative ones, the angry ones, the critical ones that seem to come uninvited, which implies they're habitual. Their habit. What arises, if you can just go play the piano, it's a habit, you have to practice it, you know. So if anger thoughts pop up, you have to practice them. Don't blame your mum. Don't blame your brain. I remember Oprah. I thought Oprah was quite aware, but I was very shocked when now she's into Ozempic as opposed to Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers have gone broke now. I mean, who wants to go on a diet now? You can put a needle in your arm, isn't it? So anyway, she said it's not our fault, it's our brain. I thought, wow, thinking your brain your brain's just a symptom of what's in your mind. And we all know with attachment you can't stop thinking about things. One of the signs of attachment is you can't stop thinking about the object when it's not there. Of course, that's completely food, isn't it? Food, or sex or video games, whatever it is you've got. You're attached to. My friend in prison on death row in Kentucky, he thinks about torture all day. Because it's dissatisfaction. So whatever your habit is, you're craving it, feeling you're missing it. We know this. So we have to practice positive thoughts. It just sounds so boring, but it's the most profound method. But not just pretending you haven't got the negative ones. Not being just Pollyanna, running around pretending, you know. No, you can't fool yourself. You can't do that. Recognize the other thoughts, but don't. The other thing is don't buy into their truth because they're not true. They're exaggerated. But we cultivate positive thoughts. We have to make an effort. You've got to. I think of all my roommates, and the negative ones are out there running the show. They're running the house. We've got to invite the good ones to come out from the closet and under the mattress. They're hiding. Bring them out. Consciously have positive. It sounds so boring. It sounds so silly. It's embarrassing almost, you know. The intellectuals would laugh at it. That's how you get happy. Positive thought. And positive thoughts are uplifting. Give you happy feelings and grow the happiness. Are we communicating? And it means positive thoughts about ourselves. Not arrogant, like I'm the King of England. No, don't be demented. Positive thoughts. I'm doing okay. Even just, I'm doing okay. I'm not as bad as my delusions think. I'm all right. I'm fine. I'm doing well. Calm ourselves down half the time. Because we're usually having a panic attack, believing all the rubbish. I'm no good. I'm hopeless. I'm this. I'm that. The smallest thing goes wrong, we have a panic attack. We know that. We're so fragile. We've got to talk ourselves through it, be more positive, more optimistic, more persevering, more persevering. Are we communicating people? This is being a Buddhist. I mean, Buddha doesn't own, I always joke, Buddha doesn't own all this. He hasn't got copyright on it. I would just say he's an expert at it, that's all. Just saying. These are the source of happy people. Yes. Oh, what happened? I lost my people. There we are. Yes, Eileen. Talk to me, sweetheart.
Okay. So are we saying that everything that we hunger for, people, places, things, objects, food, whatever it is not a substitute for real happiness? It comes from the neuroses in our mind. Because people hunger for different...
You say it again. I don't get your point.
Well,
as a question.
Well, the question I have is this attachment and hungering that we have, that we feel unfulfilled? So are we substituting through these objects of desire, whatever they are?
Well, that's what the world thinks. Oh, you've got to give up attachment to sex. You're going to be attached to food. And it's true. It's not a substitution. It's just a change in the object. That's all. It's not a question of substituting. No, I don't think so. Well, I mean, it could be that. If you know you've got to give up cigarettes, you still feel the craving. So you're going to jump on food. But in the end, the attachment is attachment. It doesn't really matter what the object is. If you're going to give up one object, you're going to find another one if you don't give up attachment. It's not a substitute. The attachment we have to give up, not the object.
Right. So real happiness then is...
When we say real happiness, what that means is eventually when you've really developed virtue and have given up delusions and you're just naturally happy. But happiness is the name for happy feeling. So go on. The question then is?
So the question is to experience that real happiness, or those virtuous happiness, really
from virtue as opposed to happiness from killing someone or happiness from a cake.
Yes. It really comes from knowing the mind. And from that...
Well, knowing the mind is the first step.
Right.
And then able to distinguish between the neuroses and the virtues and what these different states of mind are, and then knowing their practices. So it's more than just knowing the mind, but that's just, of course, it's the basic thing we're discussing. Having a proper analysis and then practicing every day. Mm-hmm. But see, the other thing is okay. They refer to the happy feelings that come from the senses, or, Eileen, from being praised all the time, because it's the judgment mind, craves to be praised, craves for the money, craves for power, the typical one, that's attachment-based, and that can never bring, those happy feelings can never grow. They just lead to more craving and more dissatisfaction. But also they cause more suffering because they're so I-based. So even helping other people based on attachment to being seen as a good girl, that's pretty deluded as well. So what really makes our actions the cause of happiness is that they're not based on attachment, that they're based on wanting as they call it, on renunciation, or on the wish to benefit others. So you could be sitting there with doing your meditation on your cushion, and then your partner makes a sound. Be quiet, would you? I'm trying to meditate, because you're being so holy. But if you're out there doing the dishes, that could be a more spiritual action because your motivation is more pure. So your motivation is the key. There's an action, but the motivation is the key. You could invite me out for a meal, and maybe I'm not hungry, but I eat the food, or even if I am attached to it, you invite me out for a meal and you offer me a meal. Even if you're attached to the meal, you're making an offering to somebody, so that makes it virtuous, So attachment to what we do is the source of our pain. So one way is if the action is so strong You've got to give it up for a while or lessen it. But eventually you can do it with a positive motivation. You can eat your dinner with a positive motivation. You can have the money with a positive motivation. That's more the bodhisattva part. So it's not as if you never can have money again, or sex, or drugs, or rock and roll. In the beginning, they're the cause of your suffering because you're overwhelmed by attachment. But once you harness that, have less of the objects, give up attachment, then you can enjoy it. Then you can have the food and the sex and the drugs and the rock and roll or whatever, but with a virtuous motivation. Then it becomes the cause of happiness. It's a major point.
Yes, understood.
Does that make sense? It's one step at a time. You can't say to an alcoholic, well, have it with a virtuous motivation. It's not fair, the poor thing. They've got to give it up for a while. It's too difficult. That's why the very first level of practice is really just controlling your body and speech. No wriggle room. Just calm yourself down. Live in vows, be disciplined, be stable, and steady your mind. Then you get to look at your mind and start to lessen the attachments and the neuroses. And now you get to the compassion wing and start to really develop virtue in a proactive way. It's kind of incremental, one step at a time. You with me? It's so important to understand. That's why compassion is more advanced. If you haven't worked on your own mind, if you don't even know what your attachment is, if you haven't really controlled your own self, your compassion is pretty limited, And that's how, as I said, that's why you get burned out. And that's a whole other discussion now, but we've discussed it. But it's important. When we think of compassion, we love the idea of helping others. But then we get burned out. Not, and this is the point, not because we have compassion. But compassion in Buddhism is under the virtuous category, in the virtuous category. And the Buddha's analysis, and we have to prove this to ourselves, is that the positive states of mind, love, compassion, kindness, patience, they cannot cause suffering. Not possible. What causes suffering, in the case of me out there helping all these people and I get exhausted and tired and burned out, it's not because of compassion. It's because I'm attachment isn't getting what it wants. Attachment's a junkie in there. So if you're seeing suffering every day, your attachment's very distressed. It can't cope. Are you with me here? Compassion does not get distressed. This is not the way we think in the world. But you're doing your good actions based on compassion, yeah. But attachment to being a good girl, attachment to making everything nice, because attachment's like a junkie that wants everything to be lovely. So if you go and help people and they get better, you'll feel very happy. But what if they don't get better? You'll feel very depressed, won't you? Because you think you failed. This is a really important point. It's because your attachment's involved. Are we communicating with that point? So, like, if you pull on mum, it's always mums, I think, because she's always dissatisfied. She never thinks you love her. She doesn't think you visit enough. You don't call her enough. You don't do enough for me. You're always never enough, never enough. You feel like your blood's being sucked out of you, isn't it? So this is the point. You want your mum to be happy. You go to visit her. You try to help her. You call her up, but she's never happy. So our trouble is you think you failed. You didn't. You can't make your mother happy, but you can want her to be happy and do everything you can, but the rest is her job. It's like you're playing tennis together. It's a dependent arising. You can't make her happy, but you can be content that you tried. That's a really important point, I tell you. That's why I always remember during the pandemic, you hear about these nurses or medical workers killing themselves because it was just so painful. All around them, all these people they're trying to help dying on them, so you feel like you're a total failure. You understand me? So this is attachment because we attach to being successful. So if you help people every day and they get helped, you'll feel so good, nothing wrong, but it's contingent on the attachment getting what it wants. Can you see the difference? Can you see that? This is really tricky to see this, I tell you. So when you're like these bodhisattvas who've gone beyond attachment and aversion, it's good to see the examples. Their compassion can only grow. And the more suffering, bring it on, honey. It's grist for their mill. But we're very limited, aren't we? We're happy to help one fly. But 3, as for 20, I'm sorry I had to kill them. Too much, we can't cope. We're very limited. And that's we've got to be realistic. That's how we are. We're normal human beings. So we've got to know what our limits are. But don't ever think that compassion and kindness and helping others is the cause of suffering. No, not. They can't cause suffering. Delusions cause suffering. This is quite unique to the Buddhist analysis. That's why rejoicing. You've got to rejoice, you've got to say what you can do. But that's why it's so depressing. You hear about the war here, you hear the war there, the war somewhere else, people being slaughtered every day. You don't even want to look at it. It's so painful. But all we can do is suffer. That's the thing my feeling is. You can't go to Ukraine. You can't stop the war. You can't make Palestine good again. You can't fix it for the Israelis. So we just want to go mad, you know. So what do? You come home and you help your next door neighbor. You help one person at a time. And that will uplift you. Do what we can, you know. Do you understand me? Just sit there being depressed doesn't help you and doesn't help others. But do what we can. Do what we can, you know, and develop. And that's why the irony for us is, if you think of the Dalai Lama, if we think of the Dalai Lama, okay, and he's said to be a Buddha. They say he's, in other words, they say he's done the job. He's the proof of the pudding, you know. Let's just say. Let's say he is. That means no delusion, no attachment, no ego, no neuroses at all. Not possible. Technically, spiritually, not possible. That's the Buddha's path. So if he is that way, and then you think, well, you mean he wasn't suffering when he was in Tibet and all, when he was 16 years old running the country and the Chinese coming in and taking over and murdering his people? You mean he wasn't depressed and sad walking over the mountains and getting sick and nearly dying? You mean he's not depressed and worried and unhappy? No, he's not, but it's hard for us to imagine that. It almost sounds like he's not human, you know. But there's empathy, compassion, and a willingness to never give up. I mean, the Dalai Lama tries to sound ordinary. He tries to sound like, he tries to say, oh, he gets angry. But you know he can't pull up. You know, he's just ridiculous. He's very funny. He's very hilarious, actually. I know one time when, all these long questions that come. One time in Sydney, this man asked all about, what will I do if my sisters mean to you? He said, tell her to go to hell. I mean, he's wonderful, down-to-earth answers. You know, he's hilarious. Or he asks these long, complicated questions, and he says, I don't know, you know. So the thing is, the biggest distinction in Buddhist psychology is the distinction, the absolute distinction between the neurotic states of the mind and the positive one. And then you have these mechanics that enable you to function. It's a very interesting analysis. And this comes from the genius India, well before the Buddha, from discovering their mind through using samadhi. You know. Very amazing. What else, people? What else? Yes, sweetheart. Where's the microphone? Over here.
There we go. Thank you.
So go, sweetheart.
I mentioned I'm living in Dharamshala around all the monks and the Rinpoches and the lamas. They often, you're speaking about the mind and you're speaking about compassion. They often point to the heart when they say mind.
That's right.
Why do they intermingle heart and mind?
What do you mean? I mean, the mind is just your thoughts and feelings and emotions. We think mind is the brain.
Yeah.
It's not discussing the brain. Mind and consciousness are synonymous in Buddhist psychology.
Yeah.
And anyway, your very subtle mind, your clear light mind is there.
Yeah.
But of course, it's heart. That's how they think about it. When we think mind with the intellect.
Yeah, and mind and heart are completely separate.
Completely. Not of course, in Buddhism.
And heart's feeling and mind is thinking.
Yeah, well, nothing. No, well,
That's what we think.
I know, but there's no contradiction between that in Buddhism.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we discussing here? We're discussing the mind, but what am I talking is words, and what are the words? Thoughts. So it's totally conceptual. Every word I'm saying is conceptual, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's pointing to the method.
Yeah.
Understand? The recipe is not the cake, but you need the recipe to get the cake.
Yeah.
So that we're discussing. So mind and consciousness are synonymous.
Yeah.
I know in the traditions, and if you're Kargyupa or something, they're going to tend to use the words differently.
Nyingmapa.
Nyingmapa.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah.
But in the end, mind, sem, I think in Tibetan, and consciousness are synonymous. Just use it in different contexts.
Mm-mm.
But sometimes it's used I think sometimes maybe Nyingmapa is when they say mind, they mean the intellect, conceptual mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
The mind in Buddhism, all of it is conceptual and sensory and experiential and emotional, all of it, the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
Is your mind.
Because
your mind gets enlightened.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Potential. Well, in fact, yeah, it will. If you do the work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
What else? Yeah. Yes, we should.
You mentioned samadhi facilitating the process.
Yes.
Could you expand on that?
Yes. See, these Indians more than 3,000 years ago, as the Dalai Lama said, they are the ones who began the investigation into the nature of self, these genius Hindus, right? They're the ones, and Buddha came out of that system, as we know. They're the ones that created this technique that enables you to go to the subtlest level of your own mind. I mean, that does not exist in modern psychology. It does not exist in Christianity, with respect. It does not exist in any of the other religions. This genius India discovered it. And that's a key technique that Buddha uses. So we've got gross consciousness, which is sensory. Then we have our mental consciousness, and we live at the very gross level of that, which is conceptuality, including all our feelings and emotions. We live at a very gross level of our mind. So this samadhi technique means single point of concentration. It's a technique that enables you to completely subdue the grosser level, the sensory and the conceptual, to access this much subtler level of mind that we don't even posit as existing in the West. And at that level, your mind is inconceivably brilliant and clear and vast, crystal clear. All you do is find words for it, and utterly blissful, beyond anything we can imagine, but it's super, super focused and super practical. And you're able to utilize that level of mind to do the work of unpacking and unraveling at the deepest level all the neuroses and finally become enlightened.
The samadhi, I've heard the term used in other meditations, more trance-like meditation, and attaining enlightenment.
Literally here as a concept, as a translation of the word concentration. When your mind is at that subtle level, when you've accessed this and you're completely trained and totally in charge, your mind is as vast as space, utterly brilliant. Yes, she said, it's as if you can count every atom of the universe. You can't conceive of the state of mind that it would be, but you just don't get it. It's a bliss out. Your mind's super capable, and you've got clairvoyance. You can see the past, you can see the future. That's the Hindu view of the mind, and Buddha's. This is one of the main techniques. And to do the job of ridding your mind utterly of all the delusions, you need to get to that samadhi, but to use it skillfully.
Can you get in samadhi, do we say Mahamudra meditation?
Of course, that's the point. More than that, but Mahamudra is even more subtle.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It is the way the view of what the mind is in Buddhism, coming from the Hindus, is so utterly radically beyond neuroscientific and modern psychological views, and even in the religious views, you can't even equate them. But that's why we think it's religion and wacky old stuff, right? But it's super sophisticated and super capable levels of mind. It's almost like you can say that when you've achieved samadhi and beyond, more subtle levels, you've accessed this microscope. You can do the work of digging deep and deep and deep and unpacking and unraveling and literally becoming enlightened. Very technical thing, not just hippie trippy thing. You understand? Yeah. So we've got to start where we are. What else, people coming out? Hello, yes, please. Go, sweetheart. Yeah.
Thank you, Venerable, for your teachings. So before I came here tonight, I was spending some time with a friend from work. He was just diagnosed like 2 weeks ago with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It came out of nowhere. Yes.
One of your ambulance crew or the other one?
Yeah, one of the ambulance crew.
He didn't know he had cancer until now?
No, and he still seems like he's in perfect health. So it's strange to be sitting with him and to know that it is terminal. They say he has like 6 months to live.
Your age, is he?
No, he's in his mid-50s, but very, still very young.
So then how's he handling it?
I mean, he seems like a completely different person right now. He's, usually he's so full of life. He's like, one of the most adventurous people I know. And, like now he definitely seems depressed, withdrawn. And
so then?
My question is like, kind of, I don't really know how to be in the.
See, this is the point I think. I know. If he said to you he had a headache, you could help him and you could give him a pill and he could get better, and we feel better. Mm. But as soon as it's something like this that we know we can't make better, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
And that's where the problem comes, isn't it? That's why we can't bear sick people. We can't bear dying people. He works with them. He goes to, what do you call him? Paramedic.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we really can't, we can't cope because we can't make them better. We can't. That's why to work with the dying. I remember these nurses and doctors one time at a conference I went to who elected to work with the dying. It's pretty courageous, really, because you can't make them better. So is he a friend of yours? I mean, you're close to him as a colleague, or just is he turning to you for help or what?
No, he's not turning to me for help.
He's just
But
telling you.
he came into the hospital where I work today to get his first chemo treatment.
Oh, I see.
And afterward, he stopped and we just sat down and we talked for a while. And
Okay, so tell me how you think you can help him.
I
Tell me.
I don't think I can help him, except just
Sweetheart,
maybe
making him alive again is not the only way to help.
right.
And he's a human being who's got a problem. He's the one with the cancer. What do you think he needs from you?
Just to be there.
And kind and supportive and encouraging and not sort of guilty and, oh, I'm so sorry and wanting to get away. I mean, what else do you do but love him? But if he's like,
Right.
let's say he's totally depressed and clinging and ringing you every day, then you can't help. You can't help. But all you can do is be human, knowing you can't help that, but be loving and optimistic and kind to him and supportive. You can't do more.
Right. And one thing when I'm sitting there, I can see, my own attachment very clearly because I have a very clear feeling of it isn't his time, right?
It's what?
It's not his time is a strong thought in my mind is that it's not his time to die, and it's that attachment of clinging to his permanence.
Well, I mean, that might be okay, but that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. But I mean, it seems to me, I've done this from going to prisons to meet people, But I can't get him out of prison. I can't stop the garbage dump places. I mean, the prisons aren't a nice place to live. I can't help them with their, the better food. The food's disgusting. They're treated badly. I mean, the prisons are not pleasant places. But by showing enthusiasm and a happy mind and not sort of, oh, I'm so sorry and pathetic and and kind of sorry for people.
Yeah.
Then I had to walk out that prison gate. But if we become burdened by it and guilty and ashamed and all bring it with you, no, it doesn't mean you're cold-hearted. You just do what you can. For the period you're with him, you're kind, and what he needs is support and emotional and a kind human being.
Mm-hmm.
And then talk about it. What are you doing about it? What do you think? Have you tried? I mean, that's when people come to me. What have you done? Have you done this? Have you been to a Tibetan doctor? Have you done this one? Have you been to acupuncturist? Try everything, mate. Don't just tell me what these bloody doctors say. Do everything. Be enthusiastic. Make suggestions. Give him some courage.
Mm-hmm.
Don't understand me.
I do.
You're just feeling sorry for him, wishing he'd go away. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's all everybody's doing right now.
Huh?
I said that's pretty much everyone's reaction right now is pity.
We don't
We don't really know how to handle it.
Get better, so we feel bad.
Yeah.
It's our own bullshit trip. Nothing to do with him. He needs just loving, kind people. But make suggestions. I mean, this is the thing when people, all the time I'm getting emails. I'm dying, I've got this, I've got 6 months to go. And the first thing I do is talk about the practical side. Have you done everything you can? Why not go to the Tibetan doctor? Have you tried this one? What do you think of this one? Or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Do it. Try to be optimistic. It's not your problem. It's not your problem. But be kind and unafraid. And this is why when people have got sickness and terminal illnesses, they don't want to tell people because people can't talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're dying. We don't want to know about dying people. We can't cope with the thought that someone's dying. They're not even real people. Do you understand me? So treat him like a bloody human being. He's a human being till the day he dies. Don't define him by his sickness.
Thank you.
That's my feeling. He knows you can't help him, but to have a human being who hears him and makes or practical things, whatever, just talk about it. He's got a problem which he's trying to solve. Well, then just don't feel sorry for him. Talk about the problem. The pill, this and that. What about this doctor? What about that doctor? That's his main thing right now. Trying to find people to help him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's a regular guy, who just only tries these few doctors and you have a few drugs. Chinese doctors, Tibetan doctors, all kinds of people do healing. Pardon? What'd you say? No, bugger mantras. No, bugger mantras. It's too complicated. Wait till you know he wants mantras. I'm talking practical, physical things to help the man. You see, I was saying, if he's a Buddhist, give him a mantra. Bugger mantra. Or we say in Australia. Or England. You with me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, don't avoid him. Treat him like a human being, please. Don't insult him. Dying people. We want to know about dying people. We don't even think they're real.
Right.
Just go away, I
do.
Come on.
Thank you.
And as Ray Lama's over says, it's all a joke, we're all dying. It's like a joke. You could die before he dies any day, you know. Ball me on the other foot. He's still living and you're dying. What else? Come on, ask the question. Last 10 minutes. Oh, darling, I mean, he doesn't know about mantras. I don't worry about it. Sweetheart, if he wants a mantra, it's more esoteric. Let's start with the practical. Let's start with his cancer. Let's start with his doctors. Let's start with the physical. Sweetie pie, I know that. Petal, I know that. One step at a time. If he becomes his best friend and he wants a mantra, then he can give him one. One step at a time. You can do the mantras for him. What else?
I have a question about going back to working with your attachment to being a good girl.
Attachment to being seen as a good person.
Yes.
Defining ourselves in terms of being a good person.
Right.
Wanting approval and praise, this kind of thing.
Yes. And so I'm wondering if you're even able to get to that point where you're identifying that. Oh, there we go. Okay. If you get to that place where you can recognize that that's where you're stuck and that's what you're working with, like are some suggestions of the next step? So is it sort of...
No, okay.
Do you know what I mean?
This is incredibly subtle. It's very primordial. It takes a time to even notice it because it's every second. The very way we define ourselves is in terms of how we're seen, you know, in the shop, in the bus, in the traffic, on the street, with strangers, with the family. We're always kind of, part of us, the feeble part of us is mentally checking how the person's responding. If you're chatting a person in the cafe, you're watching them every second and suddenly their face glazes over, you think, oh God, what did I do wrong, you know? We can't help this. It's very subtle. So what it's telling us is that me in myself as I am isn't enough. And everyone has it. And since we're born, you know. So we just have to catch it as much as we can. And then what it does, because at the moment what it makes it inauthentic, we're afraid to say what we feel. We don't even know what we feel. We don't even know what we want because we're too scared of upsetting. And that can be really extreme with some of it, you know. We don't even know what we want. Because I'm worried, oh no, I can't have that. Oh no, she this, she that, he that. Especially if you've got a very strong kind of tyrannical family kind of environment, you know. Very afraid of what hubby thinks or she thinks or the neighbours think. So we suppress ourselves. We don't even know. You know? I remember, even one example, I always quote this, one Australian nurse who worked with the dying. She wrote a book called The 5 Greatest Regrets of the Dying. And she said the greatest regret was that I didn't follow what I knew I really wanted, what was in my heart. I did what I thought was expected of me. And this is the good girl one. It's primordially deep, darling, in everybody. So we've got to just see it when we can. And the opposite of it is knowing what I think and feel based on virtue and then saying it and doing it and being it. And that's very scary. It depends on your personality. But some people live in fear their whole life. And they don't even, and just become, and are passive because they're not sort of volatile type people. So patient people, this can be very easily the biggest fault of patient people because they sound like they're being kind, but they're just being passive, totally passive. Don't say me. It's very subtle, very subtle. It doesn't mean you've got to go out there and not care what people think and just be a bully. No, not like that. But it takes courage to even know what we think before we judge what other people think of it, before we get it approved, you know. Since we're born like that, very subtle. They say the yogis in the mountains who've given up the regular attachments, you know, are still thinking of what the people down in the village are thinking. Do you understand? It's quite, so really it's until you realise emptiness when you really stop being a separate self. That's finally when it's gone. So it's pretty subtle. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you.
Good, isn't it? Why don't we end on that one? We can end. 7:51, 9 minutes to go. I don't want to cheat you. Let's have some questions. Come on. More questions? So I might maybe just conclude there. Get to see where, who.
Can I ask
Hello,
a question?
sweetheart.
Hi, Venerable. I wanted to ask. So I
Be
play.
closer to the mic.
Okay, I play collegiate soccer, and I'm
Oh,
going.
you pardon?
I play collegiate soccer, like in
Who?
college.
What?
Soccer, football.
Oh, soccer.
Yes, in college, and
Collegiate
yeah,
soccer.
yeah,
Collegiate soccer.
yeah.
In Australian. Okay. Good.
And in the spring, I'm going to play professionally,
Well done.
and I have an it's part of the game almost to like want the praise and the results and the success. And
That's if you're an actor or a musician or
yes,
a counselor, by definition, you're successful if people clap you.
right. And oftentimes you're measured
Yes,
by that.
that's right.
So it's like not uncommon to feel like almost reduced down to like that in almost like a metric way, which is quite strange. So my question is, I can't just give up soccer for a while and take a break.
Well, this is the point I said before. If we can understand that we're driven mostly by attachment, the need to be seen as a good girl, to be successful, success by definition means people smiling at me. Basically, the bottom line is that. So it doesn't mean you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But like I said before, once you've got a more steady, know yourself well, you learn to eat your food. Before you shove it in, you do it with a positive motivation. I'm going to become more healthy, so I'll eat the food. You play soccer the same way. I'm going to make people happy and enjoy, so it becomes much less grasping at me. Then when you get the praise, it'll be like a bonus, but you're not relying upon it. You see my point? You just do it with a positive motivation for the team, to make people happy, to help people become, whatever, just with a positive motivation, not just the attachment motivation. That's the key.
Okay.
Don't tell me.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
And so take it with a grain of salt. Because if you totally identify yourself as a football player and then you break your hand, it's like you've gone. You're just, where am I? I'm gone. But if you know you can be the best footballer, the best musician, the best cook. That's in the bodhisattva part, where now your attachment is less, you define yourself less in terms of that, and then you do it because you're good at it, and you've got this job, and you want to make people happy. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Good. And if you get the praise, use it as nourishment. Don't be like a vampire, which wants to say, give me more. Use it, like the person saying you did a good job. It's like nourishment on your heart. Use it. It's good. It can make you. We need to be loved and praised. We use it in a healthy way, not in a neurotic way. You understand? It's really important, Don. That'll do. So yes, learn to know our minds. This is Buddha's expertise, I tell you. One step at a time, okay? Knowing we have the potential to have a very happy mind, a mind that's full of joy as well as compassion, and fearless and confident. This is the idea. So the more happiness, the better. We have to cultivate it, and we can. So when you just think how 90 minutes has gone like a dream, all these seeds we've planted, as many moments as there have been in this 90 minutes, is as many seeds we've planted. Nothing goes astray in the mind, as Buddha would say. Everything stays there. So we nourish these seeds, continuing to work on our mind, developing our qualities, and be of benefit to others. Chamchub semchog rinpoche ma ke panam ke gyochig ke panyampa me payangong ne gondu pavashok. May bodhicitta grow and grow. May His Holiness live another 90 years. He keeps telling us he's 90 years, and he keeps telling us he's going to live another 20 to 30 years, actually. Last year, 2 years ago, in April, I think, in Dharamsala, they didn't translate properly, but a friend of mine said, he's saying all the time he's going to live for 20 to 30 years. So he said, maybe you've heard of Palin Lamo, this wrathful female protector Buddha, who's the protector of Tibet, and got a very strong connection with His Holiness. So he said he had a dream in which Palin Lamo, and he demonstrated, plucked me out from behind. She sits on a mule in a sea of blood, okay? She's super wrathful. He said, Palin Lamo plucked me out from behind, from the sea of blood, and said, you're going to live for 20 or 30 more years. Let's hope he does. He's 90, so he's going to be 120, at least. We have to hang on to his coattail, okay? Okay, people. Thank you, darling. See you later. And you be good to this man. Love him. Look him in the eye. Don't be afraid of his cancer. Don't be afraid. He will be in heaven. What he needs is that, You be brave, please. And make suggestions. Have you tried everything? Give him some optimism. Do you understand me? Please. Goodbye. Okay.